I've said it for years now. He's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people know this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years.
Oh, really? Really? I am supposed to believe John Scarborough because he promised that he's telling me the truth. I'm supposed to believe the co-host of The Morning John on MSNBC because Mika Bazooka and her family have known Johnny B. Biden longer than most people have been alive. Unfortunately for John Scarborough and his bazooka, I looked down the list of people I trust. They didn't make the list. Apparently, deacons at Woke United Methodist, they didn't trust him either, because 3 months later, John Biden was given a bruise caboose by his own party after they replaced him with cackling Cam Harris. Do you know how embarrassing that must have been? Do you know how humiliating it had to be replaced by Cam Harris? A woman whose only discernible skill is laughing on command? A pretend vice president whose only talent is leading the cackling choir? My name is Cackling Camba, rum bum bum bum. You know, everything in life is about control. Everyone wants to control their own destiny. We want to control our own lives. More importantly, we want to maintain that control while deacons at Woke United Methodist are trying to control our lives for us. Growing up, parents control the lives of their children. For some parents, as their children get a bit older, especially once they start driving, it's kind of hard to let go of that control. Obviously, you want to keep your kids safe, but there's a very, very fine line between keeping your kids safe and refusing to allow them to grow up, refusing to allow them to make and learn from their own mistakes. Now, some parents, they can be overbearing with their need to control. And teenagers can react in different ways. Some teenagers are afraid to break the rules. They're afraid to disappoint their parents. They get accustomed to their parents controlling their lives and making decisions for them. Next thing you know, kid's 30 years old and he's asking mommy if it's okay to go outside and play. Now, of course, mommy has to tell him no because Preston is no longer allowed within 500 feet of the playground. Other kids, they rebel against control. They want to make their own decisions. They don't want to follow the rules. I remember when I turned 16, my dad told me that I was not allowed to drive on the interstate. Now, obviously, that's a good rule. My dad wasn't trying to be controlling. He knew that his 16-year-old son wasn't ready to drive by himself on the busy interstate. Problem is, Uncle KC did not like rules growing up and still doesn't like rules today. What is one of the first things that I did when I turned 16? Drove on the interstate. Now, back then, there was no tracking devices on cell phones. My first cell phone was one of those old school Nokias with the antenna that you had to pull out the top to make a phone call. Damn thing didn't even have caller ID because my mom refused to pay the $1 a month for it. One of my first times driving on the interstate, who ends up driving past me? Dad. He doesn't call me because he doesn't want me to be distracted, but he did bust me. Now, I don't remember what happened. I'm sure I was grounded. But the point is, there are some kids that you just can't control. No matter how hard you try, no matter what rules are implemented, they are going to rebel against them. Fortunately, the vast majority of Americans, they fall into this category because for the last 4 years, we were fighting against a regime that wanted complete and total control. They wanted to tell us that boys could be girls and we would have to accept it. They wanted to eliminate fossil fuels because the weather heats up every summer. The regime, It was supposedly being led by a man that would finish fourth place in a cognitive race when there were only 3 competitors. Everyone knew that Johnny B. Biden's cognitive state was dropping faster than a sailboat carrying the Lizzo, but for some reason, the mainstream media continued lying to us. Captain Doofus John Scarborough, he tried to convince us that John Biden was the modern-day Confucius. But now, we have a member of John Biden's staff publicly admitting that they were all full of shit. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Yesterday on the second channel, talked about LeBron James blaming the media for the destruction of the NBA. I explained why LeBron is mostly responsible for the public's perception of the league. So if you haven't already, head over to the second channel and subscribe. Headline at something called Puck, Biden family insider tells all. Michael LaRosa, he was the longtime press secretary for pretend Dr. Jill Biden. Now, I know former press secretary for Johnny B, the lady with 3 first names, Corinne John Pierre, or whatever the hell her name is. I think she preferred the initial super press secretary, KJP. I know she's running around the country pretending that her role as press secretary was the toughest job in America, which, by the way, why are woke women so obsessed with pretending? Men pretending to be women, Stacey Abrams pretending to be governor, Liz Warren pretending that she is married to Squanto, the Yentas on The View pretending their show is important. It's just weird. But anyway, I know Corinne thinks her role as press secretary was tough, and in her defense, it definitely was, but that pales in comparison to what Michael LaRosa had to deal with. For years, this dude has had to convince people that Jill Biden was a doctor. Jill Biden's not qualified to diagnose a bruise. My inside sources tell me that a patient, they went to see pretend Dr. Jill with a bunion. She wrote them a prescription for Preparation H. Stick the tube between your toes and squeeze real hard. Last week, Michael LaRosa, he spoke with whatever the hell Puck is, and for the first time, possibly ever, Mike felt comfortable telling the truth. He claimed that Biden staffers were terrified to let Joe Biden do unscripted interviews. We were definitely worried that he wouldn't know how to respond. We were also worried about gotcha questions. The media is notorious for asking tough gotcha questions. For example, if our fearless leader was asked about Rachel Levine, we were concerned that he would use improper pronouns. Now, obviously, this isn't exactly revealing. Everyone knew that John Biden was hiding. Hell, he spent the entire year of 2020 hiding in his Delaware dungeon. And it wasn't just Johnny B that was hiding. They also hid Cam Harris. During the first month of her campaign last summer, there were people who didn't know that Cam Harris was running for president. They had never seen her before. Michael LaRosa also admitted that they tried to deny the polls. Early polls were predicting a bloodbath. Early polls, they were predicting that John Biden did not have a chance against the Orange Man. Michael LaRosa claimed that the campaign, they were in denial. We were trying to convince people that it was still too early. Johnny B, he's not a sprinter, he's a marathon runner. The most revealing part of this interview, it was when Michael LaRosa admitted that they lied about the cognitive decline of Johnny B. Biden. Now, to his credit, John Biden wanted to participate in media interviews. Johnny B wanted to be on the campaign trail. He yearned to be in front of the camera. According to Michael LaRosa, Johnny B loved TV. He loved to be on TV, and he loved laughing at himself as he watched himself on TV. Look at this guy. He's a real nincompoop. Staffers would not allow Johnny B on television. They would not allow him to take unscripted questions from the media for obvious reasons. They knew he couldn't handle it. But the main part is, the lie, the cover-up. They lied to the country. They tried to cover up the decline of John Biden. And according to Michael LaRosa, they also lied to the mainstream media. But Uncle KC ain't buying it. Do I think they were telling the mainstream media that John Biden was fine? Sure. But they were also telling that lie to the rest of us, and we didn't believe it. So why in the hell would the media believe it? The media believed it because they wanted it to be true. The media, they were willing to do everything in their power to prevent Donald Trump from taking back the White House. They were willing to risk their own credibility. They were willing to risk their livelihood to prevent the Trumper from regaining power. But why? Why would they choose to believe it? Believe it or not, the media is not dumb. These people are not stupid. They knew better. They knew John Biden was declining. They knew he was not the best choice for president. They knew the withdrawal from Afghanistan was an unmitigated disaster. Even though they would never admit it publicly, they knew Johnny B. Biden was avoiding them and their questions. So why would they be willing to believe a lie? Why would they be willing to relentlessly support a president who's not qualified to be president? Maybe it was all about control. They knew they could manipulate and control Joe Biden. Maybe that's also why they selected Cam Harris to be his replacement loser, because they knew Cam would be easy to control. It makes you wonder who was actually running the country the last 4 years. One of the many reasons that they hate the Trumper, they can't control him. And if they can't control the president, it means they can't control you. Have you noticed? We have barely heard anything about climate change lately. Have you noticed that the transgender issue has faded into the background? What about mythical racism? With the Wicked Weave being fired last week, the business of mythical racism officially bankrupt. All of these things that they used to use to control the narrative have suddenly disappeared. And when they lose control of the narrative, they lose control over you. Am I surprised that a Biden staffer is admitting all this publicly? I'm actually waiting for the book because you know it's coming. Hell, Jake the Bongo Tapper, he's releasing one in May. The same Jake Tapper who monetized the lie, he is now trying to monetize the cover-up. Anyway, give me your thoughts on this. Biden staffer admits that they lied about Johnny B. Biden. Do you give the media a pass for believing the lie? Or do you think the media knew it was bullshit and they chose to lie about it anyway? I think it's the latter. What about you? Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.